Well, this weekend, all eyes will be on Western Pennsylvania as the world's most famous rodent makes its winter weather prediction.
Of course, we're talking about the one and only Punxsutawney Phil emerging again for the 139th year to usher in 6 more weeks of winter or an early spring. And look at who we have here. Mr. Tom Dunkel, everybody, the president of Phil's Inner Circle, joins us now live with a closer look at the preparations. Hi, good morning, sir. It's great to see you.
Morning. Thank you. Well, happy to be here.
Okay, so how do we get into Punxsutawney Phil's Inner Circle? Is that like a thing? Is that an organization or a group?
Well, that's a thing. There are 15 members of the Inner Circle. It's like a board of directors, and we are responsible for putting on Groundhog Day, basically.
That's quite a tradition, obviously, that's been going on for years and years that a lot of people look forward to. So what does Phil do in the meantime? How do you take care of him leading up to this big day?
Well, Phil, we have a zoo for Phil, and he lives in that zoo with Phyllis. And just this spring, Phil and Phyllis had 2 pups, Sunny and Shadow. Those are our first groundhogs pups that we've ever had for as long as we've cared for Phil. So we didn't think it could happen, but apparently it can, because now we have 2 extra little groundhogs running around in the zoo.
So Punxsutawney Phil then has been quite busy. He's in the newborn stage, obviously, so he's not getting a whole lot of sleep. How does one rodent prepare for the big day?
Well, he checks his weather charts and his maps, and I have a cane that is handed down from president to president that gives me the ability to speak groundhogese, and that's how I communicate with Phil. So I'll take that cane and I'll knock 3 times on Phil's burrow door on Groundhog morning, right around 7:26 a.m. And then he will be gently lifted from his burrow and held high for all to see by the handler, A.J. Daroon. And it'll be the iconic pose where you'll see Phil in his one hand being held up for the world to see. We will then place Phil upon the stump where, with that cane, Phil and I will have a little talk about whether he sees his shadow or not. And if it's his shadow he sees, it'll be 6 more weeks of winter there will be. No shadow is an early spring. So through winks and nods and chirps and purrs, Phil and I communicate, and I pick the appropriate scroll, which is read by our vice president. And then the world knows whether he sees his shadow or not.
As adorable as Phil is, I think some may question his meteorological abilities. How accurate has Phil been over the years?
If you ask any reputable meteorologist, he'll say that Phil's right and correct 100% of the time.
Well, the internet can be quite the place, right? Good and bad.
Yeah, I know.
How does Punxsutawney Phil take said criticism, if any?
He's the seer of seers, the prognosticator of all prognosticators. So when you're at the top of your game, I mean, everybody wants to be a part of it.
Okay, Tom, so what are you hoping for this year? What do you hope Phil predicts? Are you more winter, or are you ready for spring?
I am ready for spring, but if you look traditionally, it's about 80% of the time he sees his shadow. So if you just go by odds, that would be a good bet. But it's not. It's a decision that is made on that stage at that moment. So nobody really knows until Phil says one way or the other.
Hey, so Mr. Dunkel, question for you, aside from all of this, is how does one, say, become Punxsutawney Phil's handler or president of his Inner Circle? How did you get involved? Did you wake up and say, this is what I want to do?
Well, believe it or not, I was hoping to do that my whole life. As I grew up, my father was in the Inner Circle for about 45 years.
Wow.
He was a member. He was a handler for probably 20 years. He was the president for probably 15. So Phil was like at my Thanksgiving dinners, believe it or not. So I grew up with that, and when you join the inner circle, when you're asked to join, uh, if your father was a member in the past, you're called a legacy member, and we currently have 7 legacy members. So uh, that's part of how you join the club. But the it's a lifetime appointment,
Uh-huh.
so the turnover is very slow. And what we look for in a member is someone who's willing to give a great deal of their time to the community, because we don't get paid. This is all the times I don this top hat.
Yeah.
I'm doing it to help help our community and to make Groundhog Day successful. So we look for people who are active in the community.
So obviously we don't want to take away from the star of the show on Groundhog Day, but I have to ask, will we ever see the missus and the pups?
Well, they are for viewing on Groundhog Day, but they don't really get to, since they don't drink the elixir of life, and they're not, they're not Phil's 139 years old, and
Wow,
we're
139.
yes, and I'm afraid Phyllis, groundhogs in captivity live between 10 and 15 years. In the wild, they live about 7 years, somewhere in there. But I'm afraid, since Phil doesn't get to drink the elixir, Phyllis gets a new wife about every 10 to 15 years.
Gotcha. Okay. I think the last question that I would have is
Yes.
I was reading a little bit about other groundhogs. So, what
Okay.
makes Phil like that guy, compared to other places that might say they have a groundhog predicting the forecast?
Well, seeing how Phil is 139 years old, and was, as far as we could tell, he is the first groundhog ever to predict the weather in the United States. We had from Candlemas Day, which was a holiday in Europe, that was a celebration about an animal seeing whether it sees a shadow or not for an early spring, or a 6 more weeks of winter. So the Germans that settled in Punxsutawney started that tradition using Punxsutawney Phil. And so we are the oldest, and we are by far the busiest. We get 40,000 people come. We have a building that is a welcome center just for Groundhog Day. We get hundreds of visitors every day that stop at Punxsutawney and want to see about Punxsutawney Phil, want to be a part of it, want to stand up on stage where Phil predicts the weather. And our welcome center has interactive exhibits and photos and from the past, and it's we have a theater in our, so nobody else has that. And so we really don't recognize any other groundhogs, because Phil is the seer of seers, and he is the prognosticator of all prognosticators. So we don't really recognize anybody else.
Well, this is always such a moment where everybody kind of pauses on Groundhog Day
Yeah.
just to see if Phil sees his shadow or not. One of the things I always wonder. One of the things I always wonder when I stop and I'm watching is, like, what is Phil like? Does he bite? What does he like to eat? Like, does he ever wake up cranky? I mean,
if I pick Phil up, I pick him. I'm afraid I'll use a pair of gloves when I pick him up, because he can bite me.
okay.
But with his handler, AJ Daroon, it's like a puppy to him. Like when he walks around the zoo, Phil follows him around and will jump up on his leg and hold on to his leg and hope he picks him up. So they have a great relationship. But the problem is groundhogs are so low, on the predator totem pole, that they are meal to a lot of different
No.
in the wild.
Oh, no.
So they are not very trusting. They are always afraid that they're the next meal. So it takes a while to develop a relationship with the groundhog, and our handler and Phil, they've been together a long time. So anybody else, yes, we caution people, please don't pet Phil because they might.
Yeah, you guys obviously take very good care of him, which, you
We
know,
do.
is,
We love him so much. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's true. We know when we watch the live event happening and coming in, we always tend to take
Yeah.
it during the shows because it is a big deal to people, and just seeing the community come out and get really involved is always super cool. So I learned
It is
a whole lot of
cool.
new information about Phil.
Right. 139, nice guy if you're the handler. Don't pet him.
No problem. Yeah,
And he's not getting a lot of sleep these days with 2 newborns and in the newborn stage.
And they're crazy. They're a couple bad adolescents. They're running around the zoo causing trouble.
Oh, well,
But
you
they're
know,
big now. They're almost adult size now, so they're hard to tell the difference.
oh my gosh. Wait, you said they're almost adult size?
Yeah, they're big.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, I never thought about groundhog and adult. I just thought that they were always really, really small.
the
But
same
yeah,
size.
they're
Right,
same
almost like
size.
the same size.
But
Well, they range they're about 10 to 12 pounds. These little fellows are probably 6 or 7 pounds.
well, I won't be trying to pet him anytime soon.
No, but we'll all be
safety.
watching the
But we'll
coverage
be
because it's
watching, for
always a
sure.
great time to see.
It's the whole world, believe it or not, watches. It's when we're up there talking, we're talking to 100 million people basically. It's
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
world.
Well, he'll be the star for sure on Sunday morning, Tom
for,
Dunkel.
for 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes of fame is all you get anyhow, right? That's what. Tom Dunkel, the president of Phil's Inner Circle, thank you so much for joining us
Pleasure.
this morning.
Yeah.
This has been great, and you are dressed to the nines as well. So this has been really great. Please tell Phil and his
All
family
right.
we say hello.
We said hello.
Okay, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Thank you.